Hey guys, how you doing? Eric over at SoCal Cigars here. So I wanted to touch on cigar storage, and this can be a massive topic depending on how deep you want to dive. So we're going to stay on the shallow end because this is for beginners and newbies. Like we've talked about, a lot of the stuff I'm dealing with right now is for the beginner, to get you into this, and to get you into this successfully. So if you've been watching the other videos and going through the process of liking newer cigars and wanting to start buying in bulk and how to get them online and the best deals, you're not buying the onesies and twosies anymore, you're getting boxes of 20. You need to be able to store these things properly to really safeguard your investment, because you can really invest a lot of money in cigars and you can really ruin them fast if you're not doing things the right way. So the topics we really have to go through would be how to store them, so basically humidor, the humidity, the temperature, how to measure both those things, and then basically other methods of storage that we don't really want to get too far into because it can really get out in left field on some of the things. So I guess for me, whenever I think about what to do in a certain situation, I oftentimes like to think about what not to do as well, because sometimes that's just as important. So when it comes to cigar storage, what we don't want to do is use these bags. Okay, these are the bags that you get from the cigar store. They throw your couple of cigars in there with maybe a Bovita pack. This is really just meant to get your cigars home to be able to store them properly, or to maybe take with you to a party or whatever. It's not long-term storage. The other thing not to do is use your Humidor, your travel cigar case, for long-term storage. There's not enough room in here because you got to think, this thing is only meant to protect cigars. So it's got the ridged foam, so by the time you put 5 cigars in here and you close it, there's no room for humidity in here. And even though it's got this stupid floral disc, which we'll talk about in a minute, which you don't use, this is not long-term storage. It's not going to work. This is protection for temporary storage. If you're in that middle ground, and let's say, I would classify this as temporary only, but if you have someone that can give you, or even a cigar shop can give you, like an old box, like this is an acid box I got from some cigars in. It smells awesome because they pack it with some loose leaf, but you can pull all this loose stuff out, and it's not a cedar box, it's some other wood, but it does have a cedar liner in the back right here. So, you know, this isn't exactly it, and it's loose fitting, you know what I mean? This is not like a seal, like you would want. But if this was a temporary fix until you can get yourself into like a desktop humidor, I would say this is better than keeping them in your car or a bag or your Humidor or a desk drawer. So this could be a good temporary solution for you. But ideally what you're going to want to get into is an actual desktop humidor. And so this is one I've had for about 30 years. This is my first humidor I ever bought. And it's just a cherry veneer. And inside it's all Spanish cedar on the bottom. And you can see here it's got a lip that fits up into this groove here, so that's part of the seal. And that's what I'm talking about with that other box that the acids came in. There's no seal. So you're not maintaining humidity very well in that, where you are in this. And then it's got a spot up here for your hydrometer and your whatever method you might be using for humidity. So this is ideally what you want to get into minimum. I mean, to me, that's the bare minimum of storing cigars. The downside to that are a few. Temperature is a downside because you can't control it, and the amount of cigars, because even though that's a 50 count cigar humidor, you would want to put more than 40 in it, because you have to have some space in your humidor for the humidity to exist. You got to understand, the inside of your humidor is, you're basically making an environment, and without space around the cigars, it doesn't work properly. So you can't fill your humidor. So what I ended up doing is having 3 of these, and it became a pain to maintain them. But you can. So once you get your box, and let's say at least your desktop humidor, because we'll go into just quickly, what we're going to go into is my solution that I kind of got pushed into, which was what they call a Humidor. And then I'm not going to go into them because there's so many things out there that I don't think are worth talking about in this video. But people make cooler adors, igloo adors, acrylic stuff, all the way up to where you can convert a walk-in closet into a walk-in humidor. So, I mean, there's all sorts of things you could do. What I really want to do with this video, because this is really for the basics and for a new person, a newbie, at least get yourself into a desktop humidor. That's the bare minimum, in my opinion. And with some of the deals online, I've literally seen where you buy 10 cigars and you get a free humidor, and it's like 29 bucks. Okay, so anyone, for the most part, if you're able to afford some cigars, you can afford 29 bucks for 10 cigars and a free humidor. So you just have to scour the internet, and you'll see these deals popping up left and right. I've bought several of them. I've given them all away, though. That's why, even to do this video, I was scrounging around a bunch of stuff I wanted to show you, realizing that I'm giving away a lot of it. So I'll have to put some pictures up of some stuff. Excuse me. So once we've got our desktop humidor, let's say, now really what we need to focus on is how do we get a humid environment in that thing. And so first thing we need to know is, what's our target? Well, the industry standard that you hear a lot of people talk about is the 70-70 rule, which is 70% relative humidity at 70 degrees. If you want to aim for that, that is a nice, medium, safe way to go. I'll never argue that's not a great set of numbers to try to hit. Use that as your gauge. For me, I would like to be, because I'm more aging and really specifically storing my cigars in a Humidor, I want to be at 68%, or I'm sorry, 68 degrees, 65% humidity. For me, I think the cigars smoke better at that, and I think it's better for long-term storage. But again, let's just use the 70-70 rule, because you can't go wrong there. What you're really trying to do is hit that and really not go above it. If you go a little below it, you're safe. It's when you go above it you start having issues. And what you really don't want to do is go above about 74% humidity, and you really don't want to get over 74 degrees. It's almost like, to me, there's like a 74-74 rule too, is don't go above that if you can help it. Maintaining the humidity is relatively easy. The temperature is where you're going to have the problem. Okay, so that's why I went to a Humidor, but we'll get into that. So let's start with humidity. There's a couple things I guess you can do, and I've even done in the beginning. I've literally cut a plastic water bottle in half, and I've poured distilled water in it and set it in the corner of my humidor, my desktop humidor, and it worked. So there you go. This doesn't have to be overly complicated. You can get into where you can almost become like a freaking cigar scientist, and it doesn't really need to go that route to just maintain some cigars and have a good time. I've also done it, if you're worried about spilling it, I've done the same thing where I've saturated a paper towel and stuffed it into the bottom of a cut in half water bottle, and that kept my humidity fine until I could do something different. So I would consider that doable, but temporary. What you don't want to do, I'll tell you right away, don't use the green floral foam crap. This stuff can become moldy. And so even though you get these free with a lot of humidors, they just throw them in there. Just chuck them in the trash. Don't use them. I've seen people where they've taken these things apart, and where it looks perfect in the front, in the back of the green stuff is black mold. So I would highly recommend, don't use these. In your Humidor, your traveling humidor, don't use them because they come in the lid. Just leave them there. Don't use them. These I would just discard them. They're not worth the risk of getting mold into your stash. But what I think is ideal, and again, I'm kind of basing this off of the fact that if you can afford to buy cigars, you can probably afford to get some of these essentials in place. You can get a desktop humidor easy enough. What I would do, and what I did for years and years and years, was I used Cigar Gel Beads. And they're usually in a little 4-ounce jar, and they're little beads about maybe 1/4 inch round, and they're usually white or blue. And what that does is they're a gel bead that maintains liquid inside of them, and it slowly leaches that out into the environment. And so what'll end up happening, and sorry I don't have one to show you, I've given them all away to my friends. I'll put a picture up. What happens is when the jar beads shrink to about the halfway point, and sometimes the jar has a line on it saying refill when it gets to this point, you can either just pour a little distilled water back in there to recharge them, or you can actually use this stuff called Cigar Juice, which has antifungal agent in it, which is kind of a good thing. So I think it's smart to just buy one of those 4-ounce jars of the beads, which is about $9.99, and then you can buy for like $12.99 a 16-ounce bottle of the Cigar Juice, and you're good to go for like a year. Okay, this stuff lasts for like at least a year. So it's a small investment. So if you were to just buy your desktop humidor and those two things, you would already be way ahead of the game, and you would be doing good. What I ended up doing was I went to a thing called Cigar Bees, and what these look like is they look like bigger versions of that silica gel you get in every kind of packaging for products that you get. This is by a company called Heartfelt Industries, but the thing about these is these are actually conditioned to release and maintain a certain humidity. So from their website you can buy 60, 65, or 70%. These are 65s. You can buy them by half pound, and what you do is you want them to be about an inch thick to work right. Some people put them in pantyhose and they make like what they call a little potato out of them. I didn't like that method because there's salt on these, and you want them to kind of be loose and to interact and move around and relayer them. So I found using just a Tupperware thing was better for me. And then what happens is you can see that they're kind of translucent, and then they kind of turn white. Well, when they've turned white, that means they pretty much have released everything. There's no moisture left in them. So you recharge these by literally just using a spray bottle and distilled water, and you just squirt them until they look a little bit translucent again. So, and as you'll see when we go upstairs and look at my Humidor, you'll see that I have 3 of these in my Humidor, and just throughout, basically top, middle, and bottom. And this has worked great for me for that. So that's kind of what I would do as far as the humidity goes. The next thing is really you want to look at the temperature. The problem with temperature is that you can't control it in a desktop humidor or these other methods. The only way I've found to really control it is 2 ways. Either keep your house AC on all the time, which I do know people that do that. I know people that live in condos here in Southern California that part of their condo rent or whatever is the electricity, which is crazy to me. And they literally, their house is at 72 degrees 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year. So for them, fantastic. With my house, 2 stories with 6 bedrooms, if I run my AC all summer, I'm looking at $400 to $500 electric bills every month. And so I'm not doing that crap. So the problem I had is I would come home and my desktop humidors were at 85 degrees. And the worst thing you can do for cigars is a rapid fluctuation in temperature or humidity. So the only other method besides cooling your entire house down to accommodate your humidors, which is kind of ridiculous, is to go into like a Humidor. And that's what I ended up doing. And we'll go upstairs in a minute and we'll take a look at that. So for temperature, you're kind of screwed. So if you have a desktop, what I would recommend is always keep it on the first floor instead of the second, because heat rises. So it's going to be cooler. And then even within that, I would try to pick the coolest room you have, and I would keep it on the ground. So maybe in the bottom of your closet in your bedroom or something on a cooler wall where the sun's not hitting it all day. And that's all you can really do. I mean, because unless you have a controlled environment temperature-wise, your humidor is just going to be based on the ambient temperature of the room it's in. So that was kind of the problem I ran into and why I ended up moving into a Humidor. So the next thing to really cover is, well, how do we figure out what the temperature is and the humidity is? Because if you don't know that, how can you make adjustments? And so that's the data you need to have. So how do we do that? Well, you've probably seen these, which is a little brass-looking analog hydrometer. And what this does is it's supposed to measure the relative humidity in the environment. And these will usually come free with whatever humidor you get. I found these to be terribly inaccurate, and I just discard them. I don't use them at all. The only time I just keep them in place just for decorative reasons so that there's not a big hole looking thing. So these to me are absolutely worthless. Here's the last investment. After you've bought your desktop, you've bought your Cigar Juice and your beads, spend the $20 and get these little, you can get a round one or a rectangular one. They're $19.99, and this is a hydrometer temperature gauge combo. The key to this one is, and don't buy it unless it has this feature, is it has to have this adjustable knob to be able to adjust the humidity reading on this thing. So what I do is if I get one brand new, or about every 2 months, I take all my hydrometers, like these, I've got several of them, and I put them into a bag and I do the salt test. And what that is you take a little bit of iodized, just regular table salt, in the cap of, like the lid of a water bottle, and then you put a little distilled water in that and mix it so it's like a little paste, like a liquidy paste. You put that in a Ziploc baggie with your hydrometers, and in 24 hours your hydrometer should read 75%, because that's what that salt will make that environment every time, 75%. So if this thing says 68, you know this thing's way off. So you can dial it into 75, hit the red button, and now you're recalibrated. Okay, so you have to have a digital hydrometer that measures the relative humidity and the temperature, because without this knowledge you don't know where to go. You know, you could be putting more and more water in your thing, and you could be over humidifying your cigars like crazy. They could start swelling up. So why do we want to do all this? We want to do this to avoid a lot of things. We want to, if we're over humidified, and we could run into mold, we could run into different kinds of fungus. When the temperature shoots up or the humidity goes skyrocketing, you can run into the cigars bulging. You can run into the cigars being so over humidified that you can't keep them lit. They can swell up and split. And then the worst things you're looking into is when you're getting really high, besides just being really dry. Anything when you're creeping towards like the 82 to 85 range in temperature, cigar beetles can hatch. And those are inherent in your tobacco, but they just lay dormant until they get to a certain temperature. And once they get to a certain temperature, they can hatch, and they'll start burrowing holes throughout your cigars. And that's the real problem. And I'll put a picture up. I've never had the issue, because there's ways to solve it. You've got to take all your cigars, put them into a freezer for like 2 days, and thaw them. Your cigars are screwed, because once you freeze them, you start losing flavor, and now they've got holes in them. You just really want to avoid that. And if you've got a humidor, let's say you've got 200, 300, 400 cigars, and you get cigar beetles, you're screwed. Okay. So it's paramount that we have the right environment. We have a desktop humidor or a winidor. We have our humidity controlled. We have our temperature controlled if we can, and then we have some way to figure out what that is, so that we know what to do and we know which adjustments to make. Because if we don't, we're just shooting in the dark. We have to know this information. So what we'll do now is basically I'll go upstairs, take you guys with me. We'll take a look at my winidor setup, and then we'll go from there. Okay, here we are upstairs, and here is a little look at my winidor, or more accurately, a cigar humidor refrigerator. So, as I said, this is the whitener. It's a 400 count. As you can see, what I've done is on the floor, I went and I bought a couple pieces of laminated shelving so that I could have it off the carpeting and keep circulation throughout and underneath and keep it stable. On top, just for fun, I've got Torpedo cigar press just for looks. The main thing I keep is just this little towel so I can continue to wipe it down and keep it nice. Up here you've got, well, a light button, which is a total stupid thing. As you can see, it only lights up the top shelf and never gets past it, so it's kind of worthless. I don't use it at all. And here's your up and down on your temperature. Highest it goes is 66, and the lowest is in the 50s, but in the end, I don't trust what that thing says or does. To me, it's just based on looking at my hydrometers, I can determine if I need to raise or lower the temperature a little bit. Another thing, a little pro tip here, is if you do have one of these things, you need to be able to open the door all the way up, because you need to have this line up. Otherwise, you can't open your shelves. The shelves hit. So just make sure that, like, if you had a door, or I'm sorry, if right here you had like a wall, you had this against a wall on the right side, and you couldn't open the door all the way, and you could only open it like this. As you can see, look, it hits the seal. You can't open anything. So that's the only kind of downside to these, is you have to be able to open the door all the way. So how I've got this set up is, as you can see, there's different shelves. In fact, I've got a shelf down there loose that I took out because I needed room at the bottom for boxes. But these just have these cedar shelves, and you can pull them out. And up here you can see these are just loose cigars. I've bought some Tupperware things so that I can make it a little easier, maybe a little more organized. But again, the shelves like this are just for loose cigars or whatever boxes. Here's one where I've got, a pack I just got in the mail, so I just threw it up here, and some loose, like some Fuentes that's got like the 20th anniversary Opus X, and so I'll just, like, if I get like a certain pack, I'll keep these all together just for organization. There's really no other reason than that. But here you go. Here's one of the 3 cigar Heartfelt Industries cigar beads that I've got in my humidor, so that I just kind of put them sporadically through. I've got one on this shelf, I've got one on this shelf, and then I've got one on the very bottom. So you can see this one right here. And again, I've just got some whatever organization is however you want to do it. I just, at this point, because I've got it so packed, I'm just starting to kind of, this is like a Tetris thing where I'm just trying to get them in there where I can. But again, I think, using these little plastic Tupperware things, I think I bought like 6 of them at the 99-cent store, so it was, relatively cheap. If you do keep boxes, take the cellophane off and crack them open a little bit, which I haven't done on this one yet, but that way you get the humidity throughout the boxes as well. Like I told you about that hydrometer, I just kept it in there for decorative reasons because it's completely worthless for anything else. But I did have the black round one in there at one time, but I found that in that location it was not reading it very well, so I put that one back in just so it didn't have an open hole. And I actually now keep the hydrometers, like you can see here, in the drawer. And for example, like this drawer is just non-infused cigars. These are just regular cigars. The next drawer, these are all infused cigars. And you can see again another hydrometer. What are we at? We're at 70% humidity, 70 degrees, 69% humidity. So for some people who are going for that 70-70, that's dead on. For me, I'm actually not happy with that because I would rather have the humidity at about 65% and the temperature around 68. But again, that's getting kind of picky. But so that's that. And then down at the bottom, you can see I've got just loose boxes, and behind that egg, there's another Heartfelt Industries humidity container. So, like I talked about, when you will get to a point, maybe, depending on how much you get into this, where you're going to get tired of maintaining multiple desktop humidors, and you're going to want to go to something like this because and you can even see this, because they make one that only holds 200. And I figured, well, I better get the 400 because I know me, I'll probably fill it up pretty quickly. Well, look, this thing's full. Now, like I said, this has become a game of Tetris where I buy any more cigars and I'm trying to figure out where the hell I'm going to put them. So even this 400 count really filled up quick. And again, this is where you have to determine, do I get a bigger one? Do I get a second one? Should I convert a closet into a humidor? Again, that's where you're really getting into a big project. But anyway, I just wanted to show you guys this because this is where I finally had to go. And 99% is because I could not control the temperature. Okay guys, we're back downstairs now. So that was my Humidor. You can see what I did there. So just to recap, if you want to get cigars, you're going to start buying bulk, you need to make sure you're getting a humidor, either desktop or, if you can afford it, Humidor, so you can control the temperature. If you're expanding out, obviously, like we talked about, you can look into acrylic, you can look into igloo doors, cooler doors, you can look into even making a walk-in closet. or you can go the route I did and get like a refrigerated system, which for me is the ideal, because to me, if you can't control the temperature, all the rest doesn't matter anyway. But get yourself maybe the humidity beads or the heartfelt industry beads like I have. Get yourself a digital hydrometer so you know where you're at, because if you don't have that data, you're shooting in the dark. Like I said, you have to have those data points. And by doing all these things, you're going to protect your investment, and you're going to really enjoy the smoke of your cigars, because I've had people come to my house that I've given a cigar to right out of my humidor, and they're like, oh my gosh, that thing smokes great. And it's because they have their cigars at home in a desktop drawer, and so when they pull one out and smoke it, it's burning and tasting a lot different than something that's coming out of a very meticulously controlled environment. And you'll really see the difference in the quality of the enjoyment of your cigars. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. I know it's overwhelming and it's a lot of data, and like I said, I tried to dumb it down as much as I could, because you could really get off into these tangents of all these different configurations of stuff. But let's just keep it basic, man. Just get yourself a desktop, get yourself some beads, get yourself a cigar hydrometer that can give you the data you need to make adjustments on the fly, and let's at least start controlling the environment the best you can at that point. If you start running into issues like I did, where your collection's growing too big and you don't want to maintain a bunch of desktops and you're losing control of the temperature and you're having those issues, look into getting a Humidor. I think my Humidor was like $350 online and delivered to my front door. So in the end, for the amount of money you might be spending on your cigar collection, $350 is a pretty good hit at once for a lot of people. But in the end, I think it's been well worth it to not worry anymore about a hot day and coming home and finding my humidor sitting at 85 degrees, and I'm worried about now infesting my entire collection with Cigar Beetles. So you just need to determine what's going to fit for you and what's going to work best for you. So anyway, hopefully this has been some help to you. Please ask any questions, because like I said, this is a big topic and you might have some questions, so feel free to shoot me those. Please subscribe, please like, and let me know you're watching these things. And again, Eric at SoCal Cigars. Hope you have a fantastic day, have a great week, and smoke some nice cigars that have been kept properly, and you can really enjoy them, and you'll see the difference. Trust me. Take it easy.